Hello everyone. I broke another fishing rod, so I'm going to attempt to repair it again. If you saw my first video on repairing a fishing rod, this one is going to be slightly different as I'm going to give it a little bit of extra strength when I'm repairing it. I found an old 30-year-old fishing magazine, and it had instructions on how to repair a fishing rod in it, which were up to the point what I was doing with epoxy, but they added an extra step, which I'll show you in the end. So this fishing rod is my Berkley Gary Roach walleye rod for jigging, which I've had for I'm not sure how long, at least 10 years. It's caught thousands of fish, and it finally broke when I was hauling a fish overboard a few days ago. And I'm going to resurrect it and keep on using it. So the last 1.5 feet of the tip is still here. It should still be good for jigging. All it does is make the rod a little bit shorter, but it still has that fast action tip that you want for jigging, so it should still be good. Gary Roach, by the way, just fishes a couple of miles down the river from here, near Moonachie, all summer long. Okay, first step, if you remember from the other video, was to trim off the edge, the end of the broken tip. Well, this one here broke pretty cleanly, so I'm not going to bother with that. But I have to figure out where it's going to fit on this good end of the rod. So I'm just going to lay it over and try to imagine how it's going to fit inside the rod. So I'm going to make an educated guess that I'm going to have to cut it right about here. And I'm going to do that with my hacksaw. There we go. Check and see if this is going to fit inside. Nope, I'm going to have to probably cut some more off to make that. So I'm going to make an educated guess, and I'm going to estimate that I have to cut off the fishing rod so it fits inside. I would say this is pretty thick. I would say I probably have to cut it off way over here. There we go. Perfect. It just fits inside just perfectly. This is an older rod. It's probably between 10 and 15 years old. It's caught thousands and thousands of fish. I'm not sure exactly how old it is. It's a Berkley Lightning rod, the Gary Roach model. Gary Roach Mr. Walleye, as they call him. And so it's not the light graphite that they make nowadays. It's probably just a combination of graphite and fiberglass, so it's a little bit thicker. So the rod's going to be shorter, but it could also be used for ice fishing. But it's still, at that being as short as it is, it would still be okay for jigging from the boat. So I'm going to rough up the end a little bit with a little bit of sandpaper. Just to take the shine off, make that epoxy stick better. I'm going to be using some 5-minute epoxy. That doesn't mean that it's ready in 5 minutes. It means it sets up in 5 minutes, but it still takes about 8 hours to really set. So you squeeze out equal amounts of epoxy on both sides of the epoxy, and mix it up for about 30 seconds really well. That's probably good. I'm just using toothpicks and matches to try to put this in, and what you want to do is try to get as much epoxy as you can down that hole, because that's really what's going to make your rod stronger. So the more epoxy you can get down there, the better. Cover all sides inside. Okay, and then I'm going to take my tip, roll that in the epoxy a little bit, cover that all up with some epoxy. This is the part that's going to fit inside. Put lots on, and I'm just going to slide it in. So it's going in about an inch and a quarter or so. And I want to line up the line guides, make sure that they're lined up all right. Have a look. That looks pretty good. Yep, that looks nice and straight. And I'm just going to set it down and leave it set for about 5 minutes. And then we're going to go on to the next step to make this even stronger. So the article that I was reading was talking about using some strong thread to reinforce the fishing rod. Of course, in those days they didn't have things like Superline, which we have nowadays. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a piece of, this is actually Power Pro Superline. It's probably about 30-pound test line or so. I'm going to take off probably about a good 10 feet. You probably need more than actually what you think you need. And in the end, I'm going to make a slip knot, first of all by tying the surgeon's loop, and then trimming the end of that. And then use it as a slip knot. You just put the end through and you've got a slip knot. And then I'm going to slip that end down over the rod so it's ready to go. Now of course the area they really want to reinforce is going to be the area that you put the rod into. That's where the stress is going to be and that's where it's going to break. So the first thing you want to do is to put epoxy all over that area on the outside and also up onto the area that you slipped inside. So on both sides of the joint you're going to put epoxy all the way around. And then I'm going to use this Superline with my little knot in it, and I'm going to wrap it around there. Now the easy way to do that is actually, believe it or not, put the line in your mouth and then spin the rod. That's probably going to be good. I'm going to trim that off, stick that inside, and cover that with some more epoxy on the outside. Except that my epoxy's all dried up now, so I'll be mixing up some more epoxy. Lots of epoxy, make that extra strong. There we go, lovely. There we have a repaired fishing rod, reinforced, and if it's going to break, it'll likely break someplace else before it breaks there. So I'm going to set it aside for about 8 hours and it's ready for use. I'll probably be using this as a ice fishing rod, jigging for walleye, because it's now a little shorter than I really like to have in a boat. But if you had a newer rod that the graphite was thinner, it wouldn't have been shortened quite so much. So if you want to extend the life of your fishing rod, give this a try. give a little bit of extra strength with some super line wrapped around, covered in epoxy.